You kids eat a lot. Maybe you should be in economy. That's what the flight attendant said right there in first class with 3 8-year-olds staring up at her. And the aisle went quiet. In that heavy way people go quiet when something ugly has just been said, and nobody's sure if they should pretend they didn't hear it. And before anyone could breathe, I did what I always do as a dad of miracle kids with a routine that keeps them safe. I pressed the call button, I smiled. I explained the doctor's letter again. We were on Skyline Airlines Flight 447 Chicago to Los Angeles. The boys in matching white polos because their mom, Serena, loves a good photo moment. Jaden, the little General Zion, the peacemaker, and Kai with the medical bracelet that has lived on his wrist since he was a baby, fighting pyloric stenosis, small meals on a clock, crackers and juice every 2 hours, or his body goes sideways. Not a preference, a necessity. You know what I mean. I told the crew all of it at boarding. I showed the paperwork we had pre-filed weeks earlier. The junior attendant nodded and said, "Of course." The senior attendant glanced once and said, "We have a service flow up here, sir. Everyone waits their turn." And I swallowed the first flash of anger, because I've learned patience buys you options later. 2 hours in, I tapped the bell again. I kept my voice easy. "Hey, it's time for my son's snack," and the junior looked to the senior, like a kid looking at the teacher before answering a question. "Service starts in about 40 minutes, she said, and I felt Kai's small hand tighten around mine as that quiet, pained face started the one his mother and I know too well, the one that says the clock doesn't care about your policies. I tried again. I showed the bracelet, the confirmation email, the doctor's signature, and the senior attendant said the line I won't forget, "If I make exceptions, everyone will want something." And then she leaned down to my son and said, "Sweetie, you can wait," like he was angling for a cookie instead of trying not to vomit at 30,000 feet. And my older two flanked him without a word, tiny shoulders squared like siblings do when they're done asking nicely. 15 minutes later, the turbulence found us, and so did the cramps, Kai whispered. "Dad, it's getting loud." Which is how he describes pain when he's trying not to scare anyone. So I stood, I walked to the galley, I asked for a sealed packet of those plain crackers that sit in every cart on every flight, and the senior put a palm on the counter and said, "Take your seat, sir," and I saw the packet right there by her elbow, 2 inches from the answer, 2 inches from sanity. That's when the aisle became a stage you didn't want to be on, because my son did what no child should have to do. He walked up with his bracelet held out, voice trembling but polite. "Please, ma'am, just one cracker. I don't want to throw up." And she told him to stop making a scene. Yeah, that happened, and he tried to turn back to me and didn't make it. The dry heaves hit his body, folding the way it does when the stomach is empty but angry, and I caught him and counted breaths with him, while a woman in 1C stood and said, "I'm a nurse, I have snacks," and the senior blocked her like we were smuggling state secrets. I put our pediatric GI on speaker right there in the aisle. "He needs carbs now, small amounts, or you risk dehydration and acidosis." Clear as day, and the senior refused to talk to the doctor, refused to hand over a $2 packet. And I didn't yell, because you don't always need volume. You need receipts. So I hit record, said the date and flight number, panned from the bracelet to the crackers to the refusal, and the guy in 2A angled his camera too, and the junior attendant's eyes filled because she knew exactly how far off course this had gone. That's also when the plan started calm inside the anger, because when you've built a company, you learn to hold a line without shouting. I called my assistant. I asked her to pull the Skyline acquisition docs we closed 3 months earlier. I asked her to cue legal and ops and have medics meet us at LAX, and I made one more call no father wants to make. I told Serena our boy was being denied what he needed, and she said the only thing that matters: protect our babies. The captain finally came forward when bile turned to vomit, and the cabin watched decency lose to policy. In slow motion, she took one look assessed and ordered the crew to feed the child now. The senior objected, the captain made it an order. With consequences, crackers appeared. Apple juice followed. Color crept back into Kai's face like a sunrise. "You don't trust yet." And the junior slid me a napkin with a hand that shook. "I'm sorry, I should have done more." And I said the only thing that keeps us from living this again. "Then do more, right now." When Kai could breathe without flinching, the captain pulled me aside and apologized without excuses. She'd review the manifest. She'd file the report. She'd own what happened under her command. And I said, "We're done being quiet about this, then." I stood where everyone could hear without turning the cabin into a circus. And I said my name, and I said the thing I hadn't planned to say on this trip with 3 kids and a bag of snacks. "I'm the majority owner of the airline you're flying. And for the last 4 hours, I have watched my sons be treated like they didn't belong in the seats we paid for and prepared for, and the room did that. Inhale people do. When power walks into a story, but here's the thing. The twist wasn't the money. The twist was what money couldn't buy on that plane: basic care, simple kindness, common sense. We landed to medics and security, and a supervisor who smelled like nerves. The senior attendant was escorted out for questioning, and later for termination. The junior was suspended, then retrained, then rehired, because fear is not the same as malice. The captain kept her wings with extra training, because late is better than never. When you stop a harm in progress, and I took my boys to baggage claim, and knelt like I always do so they'd know the truth fits in their ears, and not just the news cycle. What happened wasn't your fault. You did nothing wrong when the world decides some people belong and others don't. The world is wrong. The next morning we did the boring part that actually changes things. We filed with DOT. We pulled call logs and booking notes. We collected passenger statements and video. We audited training modules line by line and wrote a new protocol that doesn't require a hero to do the right thing. We built a seat map flag for medically timed meals, gave any crew member authority to act on documentation without being overruled. Set up a physician on-call channel, and we made bias training more than a slideshow. No one remembers we made people sit with what happens when your assumptions are louder than a child's need. Weeks later, we started the Miracle Kids Fund for families whose travel lives on a clock like ours, not as a headline, as a lifeline. And Kai learned to explain his condition with the calm of a kid who knows his needs aren't a burden. They're just facts, and 6 months later, we flew again. Same airline, different day. And the attendant greeted my son by name because the tablet in her hand had a quiet tag that said, "Feed this child on time, no permission required," and she knelt to his height and said, "Every 2 hours, buddy, I'm your person." And he grinned and asked for pretzels instead of crackers, like he was making a trade in a clubhouse. And the whole row laughed because this time the punchline was kindness. People ask me if this only worked because I own things, and I tell them the truth. Ownership made the runway shorter. It didn't make my voice steady when I wanted to shout. It didn't teach my kid to ask for help without shame. It didn't hand a stranger the courage to stand up in 1C and say, "I'm a nurse, let me help." And it didn't make the camera in 2A turn on regular people. Did that ordinary decency, did that, and that's the point. The ending you want is simple. Accountability, reform, a public apology, a crew that learned the difference between procedure and care, and we got most of that, but I'm going to leave you with the part that never sits neat, because maybe that's where the truth lives. Should the senior have lost her career, or found her conscience? Should the junior have been punished, or praised, for finally stepping in? Should a captain keep a job, after missing the first cries, but catching the last chance to fix it? You tell me, because justice is tidy on paper and messy in the aisle. If you'd been there, would you have stood up? Would you have recorded? Would you have pushed past the polite no to get a sick kid a cracker? You know what I mean. If this hit a nerve, if it made you angry or hopeful or both, drop your take in the comments. Tell me where you land on accountability versus redemption. Tell me what you've seen up close that changed how you think about who belongs where. And if you believe dignity is a promise, not a perk, hit like, subscribe, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because change doesn't board the plane by itself, people bring it.